And Bonds hits one high. It's a deep. It is out of here. 7:56. Bonds stands alone.
Now Booker with Tucker on him. Throws it up for 8. Shot blocked by Antetokounmpo. What a block from Giannis.
17 seconds from Game 7 or from championship number 6. Jordan, open, Chicago with the lead.
Ervin and Curry, one-on-one. Ervin puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown.
We're sending it in, Jerome. That's for damn sure.
Yes. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Taproom Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Stacks on Stacks Lights. Joined with my guy, Swervin, Washington. And this is the Pac-12 preview show. AK's on vacation. He's at in Hilton Head in South Carolina. And the Vikings just got stuffed on 4th and 1. Bozo-ass team. AK's in Hilton Head, so we'll be holding it down tonight, talking some Pac-12. Rest in peace, the final year of existence, likely. Well, definitely, there's only 4 teams left, original teams. So,
it looking like Washington State, Oregon State is headed to the Mountain West. And for some reason, Cal and Stanford might be joining the ACC.
I think it's talk. Honestly, I think both those teams end up independent, bro.
It's either that or they go to the Mountain West.
I still think some late things happen and they end up in the Big Ten. It could happen.
Because if Stanford wanted to be in the Big Ten, they would have been in already.
Yeah.
They're in a bigger market. They hold way more financial and academic prestige than Oregon and Washington combined. So
that's true. It's just unfortunate, man. I definitely think it's probably beneficial for Stanford to go independent at this point, though. I mean, going to the ACC is like, dude, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, their grant rights deal lasts between 12 to 15 years.
Yeah.
That's a dumbass contract. No college should ever sign for that long to be aligned with one conference. And if you try to out the contract, you got to pay down there $500 million. So,
yeah, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I just think by 2026, I think the end game is there's 4 major conferences, and I don't even know if they'll be like the Big Ten. They might just rename West, North, East, South. You know what I mean?
Yeah, depending on how the final realignment shake out. But I think the big tipper is Notre Dame. If they don't join the conference, then you might still have a shot at it being, well, won't be the Power 5. Because Stanford, all 4 remaining of the Pac-12 teams would have to join the Mountain West. And then maybe they could be considered the last Power 5 conference, or I don't know how it's going to shake out.
Bro, Stanford, like, they just have, like, so much. Even Cal has so many more resources than all those other schools in the Mountain West, dude. And Oregon State and Washington State. Like, dude, they're going to dominate that conference.
Yeah, and if they wanted to join, I don't think they joined the one. Neither one of them wanted to join the Big 12 either. So I think, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out from
Yeah, it'll be. It's just crazy, like, how much money is involved in these decisions and shit. And football is like the biggest thing. Actually, Chip Kelly made a great comment the other day. He said that, every Power 5 team should just be independent and for football, and that way they can keep the conferences for like the other sports, because football just it's changing all these things. And like, you think about sports that don't make that much money, like I don't know, fucking volleyball, for example.
Baseball, soccer, cross country, track.
They gotta like travel, like all these like Pac-12 schools now have to travel to the Midwest constantly and stuff, and like for those other schools that don't make money, like that's just money that you're wasting
Yeah.
on the travel and stuff. So it'll be interesting how it all kind of plays out. But I am sad that the Pac-12 is dying, dude. I grew up Pac-10 here. Cal versus Stanford, they'll obviously probably still have that, and it's a little sad, man. I ain't gonna
Yeah,
lie.
just a little bit. But at the end of the day, it is business. And if the Pac-12 didn't have such terrible fucking leadership since the beginning of the 2010s, you can only point at one person. Larry Scott killed the Pac-12.
Yep, 100% dude. He's the only guy you can really blame in all this, dude, and it's crazy,
Yeah, because I don't know in what world you turn down adding Texas and Oklahoma, and then you turn around and add no shade to them, but come on now, adding Utah and Colorado
Wasn't
over adding
wasn't Texas and Oklahoma after though?
no,
It was
it was
before.
before. He
Okay,
turned them down in 2010.
I forgot like the
And
the
then
timeline
a
on
year,
it.
I think it was like a year later, 2 years later, he adds Utah and Colorado. And it wasn't just he would have got Utah. I mean, he would have got Texas.
But wasn't
He
the
would
whole
have got
reason why
Texas.
he didn't get Texas was because Texas wanted their own like TV network and
No, they was gonna have their own TV network regardless because they had it. They just wanted to be everything else was gonna be on the Pac-12, but there was Pac-12 was still gonna be able to show their games. The Longhorns was gonna have that same network that they had in the Big 12, but they was gonna get Oklahoma, Texas, I think Texas Tech and Oklahoma State, or was it Texas A&M? I know it was 4 or 5. I think it was like 4 or 5 teams that was gonna come over, and he turned it down.
huge L, massive fumble of the bag, as they say.
Yeah, he ruined it.
It fucking, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. The dude's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, Champagne Larry.
He also paid like an absorbent amount of money for Pac-12 offices in San Francisco
In San Francisco.
for no fucking reason, dude. Yeah, man. What Pac-12 preview show? Like I said, the final year of the Pac-12, so it's gonna be an interesting show. If you're new to the program, we go through every team starting from the bottom to the top, and really just talk about win totals, conference odds, etc. Man, and we try to get to the window with some good bets, ones that we're very confident in. Some shows we're not as confident, and with other conferences, some conferences we have a lot of conviction on some plays. So I think this is a conference. Obviously, Ervin and I are USC fans, so we do obviously have some interest in this conference. So let's get it started, Irv. Let's get started on the very first team, which is the great University of Stanford, Ben's Stanford Cardinal. Huge turnover with this program. Obviously, they lost David Shaw, and then they hired Troy Taylor from Sacramento State, which, aside from Luke Fickell and Matt Rule, I think is the best hire of the offseason. I thought it was a phenomenal hire. I think he's going to do a phenomenal job. I just think that this year their win total is 2.5 to win the conference plus 25,000. I just think that with all the losses they had, only returning 3 starters on offense and 3 on defense, I just think it's going to be a little tough sledding. I lean their over just because if they start at Hawaii and win that game, then they only need to win 2 more games and they should beat Sacramento State because Sacramento State's an FCS school, right? So if they get those 2 wins, then they might. I mean, their schedule is pretty tough, but if they only got to win 1 more game, you know what I mean? What's your thoughts on Stanford this year?
It's no way they don't win more than 2.5 games.
You don't think so?
That's basically saying they probably beat Hawaii and Sacramento State, and they basically saying they lose all the rest of their games, but they can beat Cal. They beat Notre Dame last year. Probably won't beat them this year, but they can't give them a run for their money. Washington State was waiting to see. They lost a lot. Cal lost a lot. Arizona is all out offense. Can they play a lick of defense? I can see 3, maybe 4 wins here. I would lean the over because they hired a damn good coach and they've been assembling some pretty good. They've been trying to keep and transfer in as much talent as they can. Year one is definitely going to be an adjustment period, but I just don't see Stanford being that bad where they don't win at least 3 games.
That's what I'm saying. I think, Troy Taylor is a hell of a good coach. And for those not familiar, he was the head coach at Sacramento State, who was one of the best FCS schools last year. And he turned that program around. I mean, that was a dog shit program before he got there.
Terrible program. I think the year before he took the job, they only won 1 game.
Yep. He also is a former quarterback at Cal. He was the offensive coordinator at Utah, I think in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. So, this guy, he could coach, man. He could definitely coach, but I just think this is a long term. This is a 3 to 4 year rebuild here. Especially with they lost a lot of talent in the transfer portal, so it's gonna be a whole lot. Yeah, it's gonna be tough sledding, man.
I'm surprised they held on to David Bailey. That was probably his biggest coup of the offseason.
Yeah,
keeping him in the Stanford uniform for now.
Bro, if he kept that other linebacker he lost to Utah, dude, they probably would have had a pretty formidable. Well, at least their linebacking core would have been nice, but losing that dude, and then just they lost their entire offensive line. Dude, they lost a lot.
Yeah, they lost a lot.
So I'm with you. I think we're kind of in alignment on that one. This next school, I think we're gonna have some differing opinions on, and that's the Colorado Buffaloes. Their win total sitting at 3.5 right now, Irv, and to win the conference plus 15,000. Obviously, this has been, everybody knows Deion Sanders is the head coach here. He's really turned this roster over, which, they won 1 game last year, so they weren't a good team. They had to get talent in there. He has gotten talent in there. You give your thoughts on Colorado, and then I'll go after.
Well, they basically assembled a whole new team in the span of a year. Deion has assembled a pretty good coaching staff, brought in pretty much all the talent that he can on a 1-12. Well, they went 1-11, 1-12 last year.
1-11. Yeah.
He brings in a quarterback that has NFL talent, which is vicariously his son, Shador. Most people has him as a Heisman hopeful or dark horse Heisman candidate, but it is going to be tested right off the bat because they open up at TCU, which could get ugly. Then they're at home against Nebraska, which, that could be a swing game for both schools, depending on how that game goes for both programs for the season. But then you got Colorado State, who should be improved. But if Colorado improved the way I think they have and added the talent that they have as far as the coaching and the players that they brought in, they should beat Colorado State. Nebraska, I can see that being a close game because they're at home. I see over-under is 3.5.
Yep.
I see 4, maybe 5 wins on their schedule because Washington State, I don't know what you're going to get from them. Arizona State had a bunch of turnover, and Drew Pine might be their starting quarterback, and he should be riding the pine. That's the only pine he should be. Stanford and Colorado State, Nebraska. I see 4, maybe 5 wins. I don't see him beating Utah, Oregon State, UCLA, USC, or Oregon. But if they upset one of those teams, then you can see them in the 5, maybe 6 range.
Yeah, I think the schedule definitely didn't break in their favor at all. They have to go to Oregon, to UCLA, to Utah. I think that's tough, and they got to go to Washington State, and I don't think Washington State is. I think they're still a pretty good team. Their offense is basically all back, and that was the strength of their team last year.
But they lost their top 4 wide receivers, and they lost a hell of defense.
They did lose a lot of talent, but I don't think they're going to be as bad as people anticipate.
Cam Ward has the talent to be a very good quarterback. So,
yep. My issue with Colorado is they were such a bad team last year. I get it. The only way to go up is up, but my biggest concern is there's so much roster turnover on this team. It's a whole new fucking team, dude. And it's you gotta get everybody on board with your system, your culture, all of that stuff, it could very well happen, dude. This could be a fucking bowl eligible team. It's just, it's so much unknown because it's so much new talent here. And it's a lot of talent that hasn't played in the FBS either. Like Shador Sanders, I know he was a 4-star recruit, great at Jackson State, but this is, now you're playing with the big boys, dude. This isn't playing against, other HBCUs. And that's not.
But I don't think his transition is going to be that big of a deal. Honestly, it's going to be more of what they have around him as far as the offensive line. Travis Hunter, we know, is a damn good receiver. Losing that one guy to Arizona will hurt him because he looked pretty damn good in the spring game. Then he just transferred out to next week.
Yep.
So it all depends on what they build around him at the on the offense and on the O line because he's an NFL talent. I'm not really worried about him.
Well, those are the two guys that we probably have no concerns about. It's a lot of the other pieces.
And on the defensive side, they added a lot of D1 transfers from the likes of
Levante Bentley.
Tennessee. So they added a lot of talent. Just can that defensive coordinator get them all on one page? They stay healthy and try to build something throughout the season. Now, the main concern will be the secondary because they're probably going to be starting 2 freshmen. Even though one is a 5-star and pretty high rated, and he's probably going to be a damn good player, but we don't know how good he's going to be starting off as a freshman. I think his name is McLean. I forgot his name, but he was all UF. Then he committed to Miami.
Cormani?
Yeah, Cormani McLean. So we're going to see how fast it takes his light to cut on, which it might not take too long because, he was down. I think he was a top 5 player nationally. So
yeah, he's a hella high recruit. I have no concerns about Dion being able to recruit. That's not going to be an issue.
Yeah,
he's Deion Sanders, dude. It's just, are they going to be able to coach him? I think he assembled a hell of a coaching staff, dude. I think Sean Lewis coming over from Kent State, that was a great hire. But it's just a lot of unknown, dude. Like, to me, I can't play it over or under because it's just so much unknown. And then, like I said, they have a tough schedule break, having to go to Oregon, to UCLA, to Utah, to TCU. Like, those are tough ass road games, dude.
Yeah, that's true.
And what if they start the season like 0-2, 0-3? Like, this might fucking fall off the rails because the media attention is going to be on Colorado.
Well, we know definitely going to start 0-1. I don't see them beating TCU, especially on the road in their first game. They probably might put up some points, make it interesting for a half, but I don't see them hanging with TCU the entire game. Even though TCU is replacing a lot, they still the national runner-up from last year. So,
like, or they could start 1-4, 2-3, and then what's it kind of look like? You know what I mean?
Yeah, they would have to if they start 1-4, 2-3, they would have to get back on track ASAP against ASU and Stanford. They would have to win both those games and then hopefully give UCLA and Oregon State a run for their money. Now, Arizona, they just got to play some defense and stop them because we all know they're all offense. That defense is horrible.
Yep.
So they could probably win Arizona, Washington State, but Washington State probably might be tough on the road because Pullman on the road, especially in November, won't be an easy game. And they end the year at Utah, so I don't see that. Yeah, I see 4 max, maybe 5 wins, depending on if they can upset.
They got to pull an upset.
UCLA or Oregon State because I don't see them beating USC or Oregon under any circumstances. If Oregon loses to them, then you could pack their ass up.
All right, let's move over to the Sun Devils. Arizona State new head coach Kenny Dillingham comes over from Oregon. Their win total is at 4.5 to win the conference plus 11,000. They're returning 8 starters on offense, 5 on defense. What's your thoughts on the Sun Devils here?
I think Kenny Dillingham is going to build a contender. It just won't be in year 1. He got to get his guys in there and probably get some more talent assembled as far as the skill positions. And I think they lost 3 starting offensive linemen or 4.
They did, but they also brought in a lot of transfers with starting experience.
That's true too. So it all depends on how you can get them inebriated to incorporated to the scheme and how you want them to block. But it might start off looking good. They put this Southern Utah.
Yeah, they
They
started
should be,
Southern Utah, and they start 4 games all at home to start the
yeah,
season.
to start the season. So they probably should beat Southern Utah. Oklahoma State should give them a run for their money. They probably get their asses whooped by them. Shout out to Fresno State. I think Fresno State probably serves them too. And then they get destroyed by USC. And then they go at Colorado. So that might be their first 2 wins of the season. And then the only other win might be on their schedule is Washington State because I see them losing to Washington, Utah, UCLA, Oregon, and Arizona.
They get
Just off
Arizona.
the simple.
They get Arizona
Just
at
off-
home.
Hmm?
They get Arizona at home. That's a big rivalry
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, that's a big rivalry game. You never know, but Drew Pine, man, yeah. I'm not sold. The only reason why he even looked like a decent starter because he was throwing to Michael Mayer 90% of the time. So yeah, I don't know. I would lean the under. I don't see them going over just based off their schedule because they got Southern Utah. I don't even think they're better than Fresno State, honestly. Even though Fresno State is replacing our boy
Painter.
Damn, I can't think of his name.
Jacob Painter.
Jacob Hayner, but Jeff Tedford is a coach, so replacing a QB is the least of my worries with him.
Yeah.
Jacob Hayner is an absolute dog, the best QB they ever had. Yeah, it's just Washington. They play Washington, USC, Oregon, UCLA, and Utah. The schedule does them no favor. So, depending on how they look at the end of the year, maybe they could give Utah and UCLA a run for their money, but I just don't see them going over 4.5 wins.
They should have a good secondary. They have a lot of experience in that secondary.
Yeah, but that secondary gets torched.
But they brought in a ton of transfers.
Yeah, but then can the offense keep them fresh? Can the offense stay on the field and sustain drives? Can they put up enough points?
That's the thing is, like, I think they have to run the ball effectively to be a decent team this year. And like I said, they brought in a lot of offensive linemen with starting experience, which is beneficial. But then, like, their running back is Scatabo from Sacramento State. Like, he's transferring over from Sac State. So I think the biggest question mark about them is, like, can they run the ball? Because Drew Pine, obviously, like, he's a decent quarterback, but he's not mobile.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're really going to have to run the ball, and their defense should be decent. Like I said, their secondary is good, but the rest of their defense is kind of like a work in progress. I don't know. I don't like this play. I don't like either side. Because they too have to play Oregon, Utah, USC, Washington. Like, they got the shit end of the stick with the schedule, dude. And they have to go to Washington, to Utah, to UCLA. That's just brutal. If they lose either Oklahoma State or Fresno State, they're definitely going under, dude. Like, who are you, like, how many games are they going to be favored in here? Maybe 3?
Maybe 3. That's it. They're going to probably be favored against Colorado.
Southern Utah,
and they might be a slight favorite
against Fresno State.
Against Fresno State.
And they'll probably be a slight favorite against Washington State. So they'll be favored in 4 games.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
4 games you could lose too.
Exactly. I'm not a fan of that ASU total this year. Lean under. All right, let's move over to the Arizona Wildcats. Their win total is 4.5 as well to win the conference plus 8,500. By the way, these odds are via FanDuel, so that's where I'm pulling these odds from. I wanted a consensus book that's across the country, so that's the book we're using. Arizona head coach Jed Fish. This is his 3rd year here. What do you think about Arizona this year?
The over under is 5 or 5.5.
4.5
4.5.
via
Well, they
FanDuel.
start off with NAU, Mississippi State, and UTEP. They should have beat Mississippi State last year. But they could just play a lick of defense. This team can actually have a shot to easily go bowling.
They definitely turned over their defense. They only had 3 returning starters. They bring in transfers like Taylor Upshaw from Michigan. They got Justin Flo from Oregon as well. So I definitely think they probably upgraded their defense a little bit.
Yeah, we just got to see how they perform on the field. And honestly, they need depth on that defense too, because starters do get tired. And when you don't have a big drop off from your starters to your second string guys, that's when you can become a really effective unit.
That's
That's what
probably
we're
going to be
looking
their
to see,
issue.
because that's what we're looking to see from Arizona, because we know they can score with the best of them. So
Yep.
this offense could easily average 35, 40 points a game. The problem is they're going to probably give up 50 or 60. So
Yep.
they got to work on that. But I definitely see them having a shot at going over for sure.
I think there's a shot for sure. I definitely do. They have to
Because their
go.
winnable games is Stanford, UTEP, NAU. They might could beat Mississippi State, because I know Mississippi State did lose a lot.
They have to go to Mississippi State though.
But they got to go to Mississippi State though too. But that's the only drawback there. But the wins I definitely see on this schedule is Colorado, Arizona State. Well, definitely winnable games: Colorado, Arizona State, Washington State, Stanford, UTEP, NAU. That's what 5-6 games.
Yeah, UTEP's got a good defense. They're going to be much improved.
But their offense, we got to see what their offense is going to be.
They get Oregon State and UCLA at home. They get Utah at home too, so they don't have to go to those teams. They don't.
So their swing game is they got to upset either Washington,
They got to
Utah, Colorado. They gave USC a run for their money, but they were at home versus USC, and USC was missing hella players that game.
Yep.
So I think that was more a fool's goal because of the health situation with USC in that game.
Yep.
I don't think there's anything that Arizona did on the field besides Dorian Singer making some ridiculous catches, which is he's a Trojan now. So yeah, I could definitely see this going over. We just got to see what they put out on defense, because we know what Jeff Fish and that offense is going to bring.
Yep.
So it's a wait and see thing, but I definitely would lean the over for Arizona, for the Wildcats.
Yeah, I lean the over too. But like you said, it's a lot of kind of what their defense gives us, and I think there's a few swing games in there at home. They got to pull a couple upsets for sure.
They go bowling, yeah.
All right, let's move over to the California Golden Bears with head coach Justin Wilcox. Their win total is at 5.5 to win the conference, plus 8,500. They're returning 8 starters on offense, 9 on defense. Now, when I was doing my research for the Pac-12, before I even looked at and started researching, given what I know of the Pac-12 and everything, I was kind of like, man, I'm not sure how good Cal is going to be. That's a big question mark. But as I dug deeper, it's like, damn, dude, this might be a sneaky good team this year.
It could be, but that all depends on what they get out of the quarterback position. And the wide receivers, because the offensive line should be solid. I think they're returning 3 starters or 4 starters.
Yep.
But the thing with them is they got to be able to make teams respect the pass, because they have Jaden Ott, who's definitely a top 10 running back in college football. But if teams know you're not a passing threat, they're going to pack the box, stop him.
He's a receiving threat too.
Yeah, he's a receiving threat too, but I don't know. They lost their best receiver. He ended up transferring. I think he went to Texas.
I think the biggest thing though, Irv, is last year their offensive line was so fucking bad, dude.
Yeah.
And this year it's way better.
Yeah, they could run block for sure. Just we gotta see what they do as far as pass blocking now.
And
I don't know who the quarterback is gonna be, but starting off their schedule, they got they're at North Texas at home versus Auburn. And then they got Idaho. Maybe they could start off 2-1.
Yep.
If they start off 1-2, then I don't see them having a good season, because As soon as they're done with North Texas, Auburn, and Idaho, they got to go to Washington. Then they
Yep.
come back at home against ASU. They should win that. At home against Oregon State. Then they got to go at Utah, at home versus USC, then on the road against Oregon. That's a real tough 3-game stretch right there.
It
That could
is.
be three losses in a row. And then after that, they got Washington State at home, at Stanford, at UCLA. So it could be 5-7, 6-6, or it could be 3-9 or 4-8.
Yeah. I lean the over only because I think they do get it done in North Texas. I think they, Auburn, obviously that's a tough one. Idaho, they should definitely win. At Washington, that's a very tough game. Then they get ASU at home. I'm with you. They probably win that one. Then they get Oregon State at home, which I think is a winnable game, dude. I think that they could pull an upset there. So remember, Oregon State's really good at home, but they aren't. Yeah, they're susceptible on the road. So I think that's a key game. Like if they win that Oregon State game, they probably go over their win total. I think it really hinges on that though. So I mean, I lean the over 5.5, but when I first saw the win total and without even like looking into it, I was like, oh, it's fucking way under, dude. But then as I was like kind of looking at it, I was like, man, actually they might be better than we think they're gonna be. So they're an interesting team.
I could definitely see that happening because we know Wilcox is a solid coach. He just had to hire the right offensive mind that could put out an actual competent offense that could actually complement their defense. Because we know their defense is going to be one of the better defenses in the Pac-12.
Yep.
I think outside of last year, they always had a top 5, top 4 defense. So it's going to be interesting. I actually like the talent that they have. I don't like what they lost, and we don't know what they're going to get from the QB position. That's the biggest question mark. When your team one of the biggest question marks is the QB. That doesn't bode well until you start getting some answers at that position.
Sam Jackson got talent though.
Yeah, he definitely has talent, but we got to see that come to fruition.
I just think their offensive line, if their offensive line was even halfway decent last year, they probably would have won a few more games. That offensive line was a huge issue. Jack Plummer was like on his back every game.
Didn't they hire a new O-line coach too?
I believe so. But they added a ton in the fucking portal on their offensive line, dude. Like they knew what their issue was and they hit it hard, which is respectable. You always love to see that. And then they returned Jackson Sermon, first team All Pac-12 last year. So
yeah, dude is nice. I'm surprised he came back, honestly.
Yeah, he actually entered the portal but came back. So that's huge for them. All right, let's move over to Washington State. Their win total's at 6.5 to win the conference plus 6,000. They're returning 7 on offense, 5 on defense, but they do return their quarterback Cameron Ward. What do you think about Washington State this year?
Another team that lost so much that it's going to be hard for me to lean over or under till I actually see them on the field because they lost a lot on defense.
But their defense sucked last year. Well, at least at the end of the year, it did.
No, at the end of the year. Beginning of the year, they was pretty good. The problem with them at the end of the year, they started getting hurt and they couldn't replace those guys. Especially when Deion Henley went out, that defense looked totally different. So,
yep.
Because he missed a couple games at the end of the year that they really missed him. So, with them, it's just going to see. We're going to see. They got a new defensive coordinator, a new offensive coordinator. So we're going to see how both of those systems get put into play early on in the season. Now they start off at Colorado State, which they could win, even though last year they should have lost. And then they got Wisconsin at home. Wisconsin probably gonna be licking their chops because honestly, Washington State went to Kent Randall and took the final score didn't look like they took it to them, but if you watch that game,
yeah, they brought it to them.
They took it to Wisconsin at home, so. First 2 games could 1-1, 2-0. Maybe it could happen depending on how Cam Ward plays. They hired a pretty highly regarded offensive coordinator. The dude's only 27.
Yeah, he's from Western Kentucky.
For Western Kentucky, he's the offensive coordinator at Wazoo, and he's pretty highly recommended. Then they're at UNC NCO. I don't know. I'm not even going to pretend to know who the hell that is. So they could definitely destroy them, whoever might they be.
That's Northern
They,
Colorado, dude.
whoever they might be. All I see is a bear as a mascot. But after that is right into the thick of things. You got Oregon State at home, UCLA on the road at home, or versus Arizona.
They do dodge USC though,
They
and they
do
dodge
dodge
Utah
USC,
and
but
Utah.
their road games is Washington, Oregon, and they're on the road against Cal. And Cal, even though the fans don't show much support, Strawberry Cane is a tough place to play.
Yep.
I don't know, man. I would have to, for right now, I would slightly lean the under because I don't know what this defense is going to be. The offense should be good because they still have talent. They got two pretty good running backs. They got a quarterback who has top 10 potential in college football.
They have two good defensive ends too.
Yeah, two good defensive ends, but we got to see what they're going to get from the linebackers in the secondary. I would lean for right now. It's a wait and see, but if I had to choose, I would slightly lean the under because I don't know what I'm going to get from that defense yet. So
yeah, I mean, obviously the defense is a major concern. That's, I mean, understated. But I mean, like I said, dude, they do return two good defensive ends, Brennan Jackson and Ron Stone. Brennan Jackson was first team All Pac-12 last year. And then they do basically return their entire defensive backfield too, which is positive. So
very positive, but that bit defensive backfield wasn't that good last year.
it wasn't good at the end of the year.
Well, beginning of the year, but I think there was more of a benefactor of the pressure and the havoc that the front seven was causing in the beginning of the year when they didn't have that front seven production.
Yep.
We see what their secondary was, especially in that Arizona man. That Arizona game, man, that was ugly.
The Arizona game and the Washington game was ugly. The Washington game, they couldn't get a stop to save their fucking life.
Yeah, that game was real. That game was bad too.
Allowed 51 points. So I mean, I kind of lean the over here, just for the fact they dodge USC and Utah. I think that's beneficial. You are right. They have to go to UCLA, to Oregon, to Washington. I think those are tough games. Obviously, the Washington game is a rivalry game, so those are always, the Apple Cup is always heated. But I mean, like, they should start 2-1. They get Oregon State at home. You know, maybe they pull an upset there, and they're 3-1. If they start off 3-1, I definitely see them going over because then they get Arizona at home. At Arizona State, Stanford at home. Stanford at home is a W. Basically, chalk that in right now. And then they get Colorado at home. I mean, that's basically 4 wins right there. So I lean the over. Probably won't play it, but yeah. You're right, though, about the defense. Like, we don't know what we're going to get from the defense, and that's a huge question mark.
Yeah, if they come out looking like Arizona, then they're going to have problems.
But they're going to be able to score with the best of them.
Yep, that's going to probably be the kicker, but is that offense going to be able to hold up against a team that could score every damn possession? Like Arizona. I mean, well, you can put Arizona in that category because they can't score a lot. Like Washington or I don't know. We'll see what Oregon's offense is going to be because I'm pretty yeah, we'll see.
All right, let's move over to the next team. We got the UCLA Bruins. Their win total is at 8.5 to win the conference plus 1,000. Returning starters, they have 7 on offense, 9 on defense. This is Chip Kelly's his fifth year here.
Yeah, fourth or fifth year.
It's actually his 6th year. Jesus Christ, time moves fast.
Damn, we've been there a while.
What's your thoughts on UCLA? They're breaking in a freshman quarterback.
Well, it should be Dante Moore, but from reports I've been reading and seeing, they're saying Chase Garbers might be the starter.
Wow. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I thought it would be Dante Moore. You just go with the freshman. He has a high ceiling. You deal with the growing pains, and hopefully he hits the ground running. But honestly, I'm more intrigued as to what Chip is going to do, replacing the starters that they lose on the O-line and losing Zach Charbonnet. Because And
Carson
doing
Steele,
Thompson
baby.
Robinson is a loss basically because he knew the offense like the back of his hand, and he made plays and he did what he did. He couldn't win big games, but he made it very interesting for him.
Yep.
Losing to Arizona really zapped the hell out of their season last year. So
yeah, it did.
I don't know if they get that high again. And hopefully, but looking at their schedule, they got a lot of road games. They're at Utah, at Oregon State. They should just demolish Stanford. At Arizona, USC is the away game, but shit, it's the crosstown rivalry. So it's technically a away game, but they're still going to be in the city, the county of LA, the city of LA. So they're county of LA because they're in Pasadena.
Yep.
Their campus is in Westwood, basically Beverly Hills area. But I see 8.5, maybe 9 wins because we seen what they did to Utah last year. That was just a total fucking domination, and the score didn't indicate how bad UCLA really put it on them that game. So because Utah got that late touchdown and made it look like it was a closer game than it really was. And even on the road against Utah, that one game travels. Because we know Chip, what he likes to do as as a head coach and as an offensive guy, he definitely believes in running the ball and running power. And they went out and got another downhill, low-key dynamic running back. And I can't believe I'm saying it in Carson Steele. Gotta get a boy some credit. He got long blonde hair, but he ain't no joke.
4th-team All-American last year.
Yeah, I think he rushed for like 700 yards. So
yeah, he's a beast, dude.
So getting him is really going to help replacing Zach Charbonnet.
Yep.
He's probably not as fast, but he is a downhill, one cut and go type runner. So, and that's the type of running backs Chip like. And as far as getting into their schedule, they start off with Coastal Carolina, which could be a shootout. Then bringing back Grayson McCall makes that game interesting. But after that, they got SDSU on the road. And they played Northern
NC Central.
NC Central, where the hell that is. Probably get their ass creamed too. But their first big test is week 4 on the road against Utah. If they win that game,
they're not winning at Utah.
Yeah, they probably won't. But if they can win that game,
they're definitely going over if they win that game.
Yeah, they're definitely going over if they win that game.
That's a tough thing for them. They gotta go at Utah, at Oregon State. Oregon State, like I said, that they're really good at home, dude. The only loss they've had at home in the last 2 years is USC. And USC barely won that game. At Arizona, that's a tough game too. And we don't know what we're gonna get from the quarterback position, dude. And while we know Chip Kelly likes to run the ball, we don't know what we're gonna get. I do think their defense is gonna be improved though. They get Latu back. He was honorable mention All-American last year. Darius Musow, 2nd-team All-Pac-12. So they have experience, dude. They returned 9 starters on their defense. So I think their defense is going to be I think it's going to be improved. Their offensive line, we don't know what we're getting from their offensive line. Their offensive line is very inexperienced. They lost a lot of starters on that offensive line, and they're breaking in a new quarterback. Those are my 2 biggest question marks. Because of that, I lean the under. The best thing going for them is they have a light schedule to start the year off. So they get to go through those growing pains a little bit against bad opponents, which they should still win. Although at San Diego State, that might be a tough game. At Utah, though, I think they get fucking slaughtered, Irv. Especially because Utah knows what happened last year.
Yeah, but is Cam Rising going to be healthy, and is Brett Keithy going to be anywhere near the level he was before that injury? Now, Utah is susceptible still on the outside. They don't got a lot of playmakers on the outside. So if UCLA keys in on that run game and stifles that, then we could see another game like we saw at the Rose Bowl last year.
Yeah, but I mean, Utah's got a good defense too, and UCLA breaking in a new quarterback and this fucking second true road game. Even if they
could be true, but I don't know whether it's Garbers or whether it's Dante Moore. The talent will be there. They got Cal Ford. They added some pieces on offense. I
Yeah.
like what they did on offense. It just depends on what they're going to get from that O line. If that O line could play anywhere near the level it did last year, then they're going to be pretty much in every game that they play. So
Yep.
that's the only question mark for me. Because I think even with Dante Moore being young, the talent is there, and Chip is not going to have him out there having to make two or three reads before he has to throw the ball. It's going to be one read, a hot read, or
Yeah, it's gonna
take
be
off and
fucking
go.
wide receiver screens.
Yeah, until you get more comfortable with the offense, which I think he should do. And then don't forget they do run a lot of RPO, and he is a true dual threat QB too. So I think the acclimation for him won't be as hard as you as it usually is for true freshman quarterbacks because he's an early enrollee. If you're an early enrollee as a true freshman, it gives you a super leg up on getting acclimated to college, the playbook, weightlifting, nutrition, all that stuff, and it speeds up your growth process. So I think that'll be key for Dante Moore if he is the starter week 1. And by week 4, he should be settled in enough. There's going to be a big, difficult game. You're going on the road to Utah. They ain't lost a home game with fans since like 2018 or some shit like that. So
Yeah, it's a tough place to play, man.
it's a tough place to play. And they ain't even and when they're not at home, they ain't shit. But that's a different subject. But I don't know. I would lean the over honestly because the toughest game is in the beginning of the year. The toughest game is in the beginning and at the end. And in the middle, there's a lot of winnable games. Washington State, Oregon State, Stanford, Colorado.
They're not winning at Oregon State.
Yeah, they yeah. I'm not gonna say they can't win. They could win.
They could.
It's unlikely they win, but I'm not gonna just rule it out that they can't win that game. But even if they drop that game and they use the Utah, they easily could win.
I think Oregon State's a better team than Cal or UCLA this year.
Yeah, because they added DJ, but they lost a lot on defense, and that's the big problem with Oregon State. But we'll see.
Well, let's talk about Oregon State. Let's move into them. So their win total is 8.5 to win the conference plus 1,200. They're returning 8 starters on offense, 5 on defense. What's your thoughts about Oregon State?
They are a true dark horse to win this conference because they're just that damn good at home. And even when they're on the road, the run game travels everywhere. And that's one thing they can damn sure do is run the football. And when they do that, it puts a lot of stress on offense because they can control the clock. Yep. And if you control the clock more times than not, you have a very good damn shot at winning the game. They have the best QB they have talent-wise since Matt Moore.
Yeah.
So, and that was what, early mid 2000s?
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
And a lot of people say DJ wasn't used the right way at Clemson and the offensive coaching and the offense he learned and he's incorporating at Oregon State. He's gonna look like a totally different quarterback, which I tend to believe definitely because Clemson offense was just too damn vanilla for any QB. Yep. Except Cade Klubnik because he's not going to be good at all. Had to throw that in there. But now I'm definitely feeling Oregon State could challenge to be a definitely contender for this conference because all their tough games besides Oregon is at home. And them at home is a different animal. And their stadium is going to be packed this year because
they reopened that west side of it.
Yeah, the construction is done, so it's going to be a full stadium, and hopefully they don't get to pump in that fake ass artificial crowd noise. They should ban that shit because that shit right there is trash.
Yeah, that shit is fucked up.
That should not be a part of the game, the great game of college football. But yeah, I could definitely see them going over because they're not going to lose all 3 of those games to Utah, Washington, or Oregon. They're beating one of those 3 teams for sure.
Yep.
Don't know which one it is. They could beat 2 of them.
They might beat all 3.
Yeah, they could beat all 3.
They get them all 3 at home.
Yeah, but if they could, no, Oregon's on the road.
Oh yeah. I was looking at Washington.
But after what they did to Oregon last year, adding a better QB this year, I think they could definitely beat Oregon in Oregon. But out of those big three, if they win all three of those games, man,
You should
this
look at it
could
as
be
the big four because they go Utah, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon, and only one of those is a road game.
Yeah, so if they win those games, this is a 10-11 win team if they beat those three.
Yep.
I don't see them beating all four. They probably win their games at home, but it's really going to come down to Washington and Oregon in back-to-back weeks at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's a
But I
brutal
think,
fucking.
I think they'll already be at or over their win total by then because if they beat Utah, I see them beating Cal, beating Arizona, beating Colorado. Because all their road games, they can win all their road games hands down.
Yeah.
Because hands down a better team than all four of those teams, which is Arizona, Colorado, and Washington State and Cal.
The schedule definitely broke their way, dude.
Yeah, the schedule is definitely their way. Even their non-con, they got San Jose State,
UC Davis,
SDSU, and UCD. Where
UC Davis, bro, the the Aggies.
Yeah, they getting their asses destroyed at 6 p.m. on Saturday 9/9. On the Pac-12 network. Shout out and rest in peace to the Pac-12 network, one of the worst networks that ever
dude.
Football.
Yeah.
Even when USC games on a Pac-12 network, I detest watching those damn games because it's just not good commentary, not good coverage at all.
Yeah,
that was probably one of the Pac-12 worst ideas ever too, is making that damn Pac-12 network. Yeah, I definitely like the over for this team. I actually love the over, honestly.
Yeah, I like the over too. I like the over. I think this is going to be a good team. I 100% agree with you on DJ. I think people tend to forget because of the last 2 years of DJ, right? Remember his first game freshman year against Notre Dame? He goes into Notre Dame and throws for like 450 yards and just fucking lights him up, dude.
Kills him.
And then he just struggles and stuff. And I think a lot of that was because their offensive coordinator from that year left. Became head coach of Virginia. His name's fucking slipping my mind right now. Tony Elliott. So I think you get him. Jonathan Smith is a fucking great coach, dude. He's one of the better coaches in the country. He's gonna have the best coaching he's had since Tony Elliott on offense, and he's gonna have a great offensive line and a great running game. Not that he didn't have it at Clemson, but he's gonna have that at Oregon, man. And I think this is gonna be a good team, dude. I think this is gonna be a really fucking good team. They only returned 5 starters on defense, but they did add a lot in the portal, and they do have a lot of younger guys stepping up.
Yeah, but they lost Spates. They lost both corners, and I think they lost one of the safeties too.
Yeah, and they lost fucking what's his name? Jack Coletto.
The linebacker.
Who was like a heart and soul of the team. But you know what?
We'll see. They had to reload. We'll see.
It's gonna be a good team, dude. And I'm pretty confident in their win total over 8.5. I like it.
I like it too.
I think the schedule just totally breaks their way. It's one of those ones where the schedule it's perfect for them. All right, let's move over to Washington. The Huskies, they were 11-2 last year. Their win total's at 9.5 this year to win the conference, plus 320. Kalen DeBoer's second year. Michael Penix's second year. Michael Penix is a darling pick for Heisman right now. What's your thoughts on Washington?
Good team. Got a damn good coach.
Yep.
I respect the shit out of Kalen DeBoer. Very good coach. The thing with them is that defense, man. I know they added some pieces in the portal. They got a good defensive line, but that line, those linebackers in that secondary is good, bro. That's how far this team is going to go.
And did you say the offensive line?
The offensive line, yeah, they lost the center and both guards.
Bro, they lost 4 starters on their offensive line.
Yeah, I didn't think about that might be.
That's tough, dude.
Yeah, that's gonna be hard to overcome. I know they added people with starting experience in the portal.
Not like they didn't add starting experience like a lot of these other
USC
teams
and other teams did. They just added more talented players.
Yeah.
I mean, well, players with talent, capability, and they got to get coached up for sure.
Yep. The
Yeah,
schedule does break their way though. They get Oregon at home. They get Utah at home. Um, they have to go to Oregon State though. They have to go to USC. But then the rest of their Pac-12 schedule is pretty like cake, dude. Cal at home, at Arizona, Arizona State at home, ASU at home, at Stanford. That's the one thing. That Boise State game might be pretty big too.
yeah.
What if they lose that game?
Then that's all bad.
Their season might be over, dude.
Yeah, because they got a tough schedule. And we know what they did to Oregon last year. That defense was there to be had. And people say Lannon is supposed to be a defensive guru. So we'll see how that shakes out. But honestly, the over under is
9.5.
9.5. Honestly, I got them right at 9 wins.
Yeah, I think they're like 8-9 win team.
Because they would have to beat, I don't see them beating USC. So they would have to beat Utah, Utah, Oregon, and Oregon State to hit the over. And that's if they beat, because they got to go 3-0 in their non-conference.
Yep.
Then they get eased into Pac-12 play against Cal at home and Arizona on the road. Then their first big test is October 14th against Oregon, but they got Oregon at home.
And they get Oregon off a bye too.
They get Oregon off a bye too, but they play Arizona the week before, so they should be ready.
Yep.
ASU, Stanford. Yeah, I got them right at 8 or 9 wins because they would have to upset Oregon, Utah, and Oregon State to go over. Because I don't see them beating USC on the road.
I don't see them beating USC or Oregon State on the road. They should beat Michigan State at Michigan State, but they got to go to East Lansing and play that game.
Yeah, that's always tough going on the road.
So that's no gimme. They do get Utah and Oregon at home, and like I said, they get a bye week and then they get Oregon, so they get like a whole extra week to prepare for Oregon, which I think is super beneficial. But I'm with you, dude. I think they're like right at 9 wins. I'm not comfortable taking it over or under, but I lean the under. Lean under.
I would lean the under for sure too.
All right, let's move over to another 9.5 win team. That's the Oregon Ducks. To win the conference plus 340, win totals at 9.5. They return 8 starters on offense and 8 on defense. With the Ducks being your favorite team, I'll let you take it over for them.
Honestly, it all depends on was what we saw from Bo Nix last year a fluke because he was with his OC that he had his best year with when he was at Auburn, or did he actually turn a corner and become one of the better QBs in that college football? Now that's going to remain to be seen because starting off, yeah, you got Portland State at home on the road against Texas Tech. That's definitely going to be a test because they got to go to Lubbock. And we know what Texas Tech is. That coach is a damn good coach. And that's one thing you haven't seen from Texas Tech, but they've been assembling defensive talent, which is damn near unheard of in that program's history the last 2 decades. So that's going to be their first test. And then they come back, but they start Pac-12 play with Colorado, Stanford. Then they're at Washington. So, honestly, to be honest, unless I see some improvement on that defense, because you know that offense is going to be formidable. That defense got to get way better, especially in that secondary. They lost Christian Gonzalez, who was a top 10 pick, who was probably pretty much their saving grace on defense a lot of last year with that secondary because that pass rush was non-existent. It wasn't that great. Quarterbacks had plenty of time to be in the pocket and make plays downfield. They were okay against the run. But honestly, I don't believe in Bo Nix. I just think he was with a good offensive coach that knew his strengths and played all the way towards his strengths and his weaknesses, and not towards his weaknesses. He's great playing with a lead, but is he the type of quarterback that can come from behind and get you a win and put the game on his shoulders? Hell no. So I got him going under, honestly, because I'm not a believer in Dan Lannon. The offensive line lost what 2, 3 starters.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, they lost a couple starters on the offensive line, but they do return a lot of experience on the offensive line, which is
yeah, but they lost NFL talent. It should help. They lost their O line coach too. It could be a big loss because he's not great on the NFL level, but he's a pretty good college O line coach.
they also get Popo Mave back. They lost him. He was out for the year last year. He didn't really play.
Yeah, he's probably gonna be the right or left tackle. So they gotta do it. They do have one booking, but they lost a center, they lost a guard, and they lost Bass too. Was Bass a tackle or a guard?
Well, they lost a tackle, but they also Josh Connolly. He played 13 games as a true freshman last year, so he'll be starting left tackle this year as a sophomore, as a true sophomore. He was a 5-star recruit.
Yeah, he was the #1 tackle in the whole country. I remember when they got him because they beat out USC.
Yeah, so I don't. I feel you on the Bo Nix thing. Like, was it a one-hit wonder? That is to be seen. You know what I mean? That is a true 2 yards per carry on defense, and they allowed 63% completion percentage on defense as well. So that's gonna have to get better. But I also think a big part of that is they didn't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback as much as they normally do. They only
At all.
sacked the quarterback 3.9% of the time they drop back, dude, which is only 18 sacks. That's not good. That's got to get better.
Yeah, they gotta get way better.
So that's going to be huge. I do think that, like, dude, their schedule breaks easily. Like, they should easily beat Portland State, Hawaii, Colorado, Stanford. Like, they could, if they win that Texas Tech game, they start 5-0, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get a fucking bye. And then they play Washington, at Washington. If they somehow win that game, they're 6-0. Then they get Washington State 7-0. At Utah, we'll mark that an L, 7-1. Cal, that would be a winner. That's 8 wins right there. And then even if they lose to USC, they get Arizona State and then Oregon State at home. They win those 2 games, they go over. So
It's 9 or 9.5.
9.5. I kind of lean the over, dude.
Yeah, I would probably lean. I'm still gonna lean the under because I don't know if they beat Washington.
Yeah, that is the key. That is the key game right there.
I don't know if they beat Washington. I don't know if they beat Utah at Utah. And honestly, if USC stays healthy, I got USC winning that game. Even though it's tough to win at Autzen, well, when you got a Caleb Williams, no place is tough to.
Yeah, you're always going to be live.
So,
I lean the over.
I'm gonna still lean that under because I don't see them beating Washington on the road or Utah, and I got them losing to USC at home. So that's 3 losses right there.
I definitely don't think they beat Utah, but they could definitely beat Washington.
Yeah, because the revenge factor. But you gotta look at what Washington did to them last year. Phoenix absolutely took that team apart.
No, he did. For sure. But a big part of that is they got to get pressure on the quarterback. If they don't get pressure, it's going to be the same thing as last year. And I would go under. So we'll see what happens with them. All right, let's move over to the Utah Utes. Their win total's at 8.5 to win the conference plus 550. They're returning 7 starters on offense and 9 on defense. What do you think about the Utes?
Honestly, we're gonna find out what this team is right off the bat. They're at home against Florida, and then the next week they're on the road at 9 a.m. against Baylor.
Yep, I agree.
So if they're 1-1, 0-2, 2-0 after those first 2 games, then we know what type of team we're gonna be getting because they're gonna beat the hell out of Weber State in week 3.
Yep.
Then they got UCLA coming in. Then they're at Oregon State. Then they play Cal at home, on the road against USC, then at home against Oregon. Then at the end of the year, they got to go to Washington, at Arizona, and in the year at home against Colorado. I would lean the over, but if they lose those first 2 games, they might be in some trouble.
I think they definitely beat Florida. I think that Baylor game is going to be tough. Like,
the Baylor game is going to be super tough. Now, Florida, if they don't have a healthy Cam Rising, Florida might be trouting out Graham Mertz, though, but
oof. Oof. No, you don't want to
Yeah,
see
you can
that.
say that about 5, 6 more times. Damn.
You don't want to see that. Uh,
So
I, I, I,
yeah,
I think that Florida game, like they have to win that game because if they lose Florida Baylor, they could very well start the year 2-3.
yeah, or 1-4.
They're not losing 2 home games, dude.
Shit, they could lose to UCLA.
They're not losing to UCLA.
Bro, if Dante Moore is the player that people think he's going to be early,
They're not losing.
UCLA can win that game.
They're not losing to UCLA, dude.
UCLA defense is going to be improved. We know what Chip is going to bring on the offense, even with a freshman.
The 2 best things about Utah, their team, is their offensive line, their defensive line. Like they're very exceptional, both of those.
Yeah, but their offensive line lost 3 starters who were barely over replacement level players, and they're replacing them with guys who couldn't beat those players out. Now, they tackles,
dude.
Should be
all the dudes they lost on the offensive line last year got drafted. No,
Yeah,
they only lost 2 starters on the offensive line. They only lost the center Paul Molly and their left tackle Braden Daniels. He was drafted to Washington.
No, they lost the guard too.
No, they returned 3 starters. They returned Michael Mufosky, the right guard. They returned the left guard Keaton Bills, and then they returned the right tackle Satoa Lamai. He was second team All Pac-12 last year. So they're only replacing the center. He's a sophomore, true sophomore. And then they replace a left tackle with Falcon Kamatule. And he's played 22 games in his career.
Oh, well, in my research, they said they was replacing 3 starters. But anyway, do they have the weapons on the outside? Their run game should be solid because they always seem to find a way to have a good running back, two or three running backs. But on the outside, they don't have that many weapons, and you can make up for that when you got a Dalton Kincaid who goes to the first round as a tight end. Brett Keithy is coming off of ACL, right?
Yeah.
Cam Rising is coming off of ACL. I would lean the over just for the simple fact they always find a way to have 8 or 9 wins every year. But if they don't start off well, this season could definitely go straight because they're at Washington, at USC, at Oregon State. And we all know this team on the road is not the same team as they are at home.
Yep.
And at Baylor, too. They could easily lose all 4 of those games.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I lean the under with them. I mean, yeah. I see them like anywhere between like 8 and 9 wins, dude.
Yeah, that's their ceiling, honestly, because all their road games, I don't see them winning. I don't see them beating USC. They might get Washington a run for their money, but I think Washington offense wins out, and the defense makes just enough plays to win them that game. Oregon State is going to be much improved. They haven't lost at home. Only team that beat them at home the last 2 years is USC.
Yep.
So they got to take care of business at home. If they lose any of them home games, they're going way under.
Yeah, they definitely, and you're like you said, dude, we're going to learn a lot. We're going to learn what this team is right away. The second the season starts.
I agree.
So that's going to be
interesting. Overrated as shit.
All right. It's time to move on to the team that should have won the Pac-12 last year. But we didn't. USC's win total this year, Irv, 9.5. The same as Oregon. The same as Washington. But they're the favorites to win the conference at plus 200. Returning 17 starters, including the Heisman Trophy winner, Caleb Williams. What's your prediction for USC?
I had them going over last year. And I got them going over this year. Dun, 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 dun. Honestly, man, the the sky is the limit for this team. We improved on our biggest weakness like no other team did. We attacked our weakness in our front seven. We added players in our secondary that was already talented, and the secondary might look totally different than what it did last year, honestly. The front seven, you got Bear Alexander, Keon Barnes, Jack Sullivan.
Yep.
You added a former 5-star and
Still got Corey Foreman too.
still got Corey Foreman. We got 2 freshmen that's been tearing it up at camp is gonna see early playing time. And Tackett Curtis as a linebacker, and the defensive lineman Sam Green / edge guy. Braylon Shelby's going to see time. He's 6'5", 250. He's already looks like a damn senior stature wise. I don't know, man. The sky's the limit. If this defense could be top 40, top 30, this could be a national championship team because the offense is going to be that damn good. Like our first 4 or 5 games, this offense might average 50, 60 points, like not even being funny.
Yep.
And our first test, our first semi, well, I don't think that's a test because Arizona, we're going to dog walk their ass. Our first test is in November, and it starts at Notre Dame. And
that's October.
Our last, and we have 5 or 6. That's probably going to be the toughest 6-game stretch in the entire country. We got Notre Dame, then we got Utah at home. We should beat the shit out of Cal at their place. Then we got Washington at home on the road against Oregon, and we finish the year at the Coliseum against UCLA. And This is not me being biased. If this defense improves, which I think is going to be well improved as far as from a depth talent standpoint, you get Bear Alexander, who's an NFL talent. Keon Barnes was second team All Pac-12.
Yep.
You got Damani Jackson coming in. He was a 5-star cornerback. He's a year removed from that ACL injury. And looking like the player he was in high school, he could definitely be a big leg up. Zion Branch, who had a meniscus injury last year, going to be a true sophomore. Look for him to break into the starting lineup at some point at strong safety. It's just the upgrades we did on defense, man. If this team stays healthy, honestly, the only game we might lose, I'm looking at 2 games. At Oregon and maybe at Notre Dame. But other than that, if we don't lose either one of those, I got us going either 11-1 or 12-0.
Yeah, I think the schedule is the toughest part, dude, because, you know, you go at Notre Dame, then you have Utah the very next week, then at Cal, then you have Washington at home, and then at Oregon, and then you have UCLA at home. Like, I just feel like, honestly, I think Cal and Oregon are the 2 fucking games in circle. The Cal game is because it could be a letdown spot. You're off the Utah game, you win that game, it's a high, and then you're mentally preparing for Washington. Already thinking you're gonna dog walk Cal. That's a tough spot. And then after Washington, you gotta bounce back and play Oregon. With knowing you're playing your rival UCLA the week after. Like, I hate that I just keep looking at that Oregon game on November 11th, dude, and I'm just like, dude, that is a fucking shitty spot, dude. Like, regardless of, I think USC is the better team. That I have no doubt about that. That is just a shitty fucking spot. So
yeah, the thing about Lincoln Riley though, he dominates Novembers.
He does. That is just a fucking shitty spot.
Yeah, I think he can because we're on the road and they're good with home team. But at the end of the day, man, the talent we've assembled, the culture we building, Caleb Williams, who's hands down, regardless of position, I don't give a fuck how you cut it, how you slice it. He's the best player in college football.
Yeah, I agree.
He's going to be the number 1 pick. All these damn mock drafts, they got Drake May going number 1 and Marvin Harrison Jr. going number 1. You shouldn't pay no. If you believe those people, I got beachfront property to sell you in Idaho and Montana.
Yep. I think they go at max they lose 2 games. Max they lose 2 games. So that's 10 wins.
They lose 2, honestly, because as good as he was last year, like he said, staying on the field on third down, taking what the defense gives him, speeding up his process a little bit of holding the ball too long. He's seen that noise. He's heard that noise. Now all these Pac-12 teams think that they could just wait it out. He's going to hold the ball and probably make a mistake. He knows what he needs to improve on, and I'm pretty sure Lincoln is telling him every day. And the wild card to that is they added Cliff Kingsbury as a senior analyst for the quarterback, especially for the quarterback position. So I think that goes another long way in helping develop Caleb for the next level in his final year of college. Because even if USC goes undefeated and they offer him a fucking $20 million NIL deal to come back for his senior year, he's going to the NFL for sure. The only thing I could see is derailing this team from reaching their potential and what they could actually achieve. They just gotta avoid a major injury bug, especially on the defensive end, because even though the depth is better this year, when you add a Mason Cobb, a Keon Bars, Christian Roland Wallace, why did that kid name from Texas and keep slipping my damn name?
Anthony Lucas.
Anthony Lucas.
They also added Jamil Muhammad.
Yeah, Jamil Muhammad. When you add those type of players, then they pick up the system and they get indoctrinated to this culture. And they all been saying it's been like a brotherhood from day one. So I don't know, man. I think this year could be special for USC. We seen what they did last year, and that was like Lincoln Riley said, that is going to be the worst roster he has as far as talent wise at USC.
Yeah.
And we haven't even brought up what they got on the offense. I mean, they added Deuce Robinson.
Yep.
6'6", 220, 230, 240. They can run 22 miles an hour. Zachariah Branch, Jacoby Lane, who's probably the least unheralded recruit in our wide receiver class, has been getting talked about damn near every day in practice, making crazy catches.
Dorian Singer,
who absolutely torched us last year, went off like 3 touchdowns and down there 160 yards, is going to be a part of a receiving corps that features Zachariah Branch,
Mario Williams,
Brendan Rice, Taj Washington, Michael Jackson III. It's an embarrassment of riches. And you lost Andrew Voorhees, who's pretty much an All-American.
Yep.
One of the best guards in the country. You lose him and you add Manuel Pregnon, who definitely has first-round potential as a guard and is a road raider. Probably one of the best run-blocking guards in the NCAA last year. And, of course, he has to...
Raleek Brown another year or two.
Yeah, Raleek Brown, even though him playing slot, he is going to be still using running back in spots. You add Marshawn Lloyd, those 2 freshman running backs they got from Texas been looking damn good as well. Austin Jones. Man, if this defense is anywhere near the top 40, 30, 25,
they just got to be decent, dude.
Yeah, if we have a top 25 defense, we're not losing the game.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I don't care if we play in Jamaica, the Bahamas Bowl, if we play in Hawaii at the stadium they're renovating. If we have a top 25 defense bucket, this team is going undefeated and we're going straight to the playoffs.
Yep. No, I agree. Like, they just got to be decent, dude. They don't even have to be like top 25, bro. They just got to be a decent defense,
top
dude.
40, top 50. If they that higher than what they were last year, giving up less points, less yards per play, and can get off the field on third downs and still force not the same amount of turnovers, but in that neighborhood and not turn the ball over, you're looking at a national championship team, playoffs. So, and you have a generational talent like Caleb Williams. If this defense plays anywhere near the level that this offense is going to be at, you could pencil us in for a playoff spot come late December.
Agreed. All right. Let's get to our best bets for this conference, Pac-12. What's your best bet? Best bets.
I got 3. I got USC going over.
Okay. USC over 9.5.
I got Arizona over.
What was there? 5.5?
I think it was 4.5. Was it 4.5 or 5?
It's one of those. All right.
Yeah, I got them going over. And last but not least, I got Oregon's at 9.5, right?
Yeah,
I got them at 9 wins.
under 9.5. All right.
Under 9.5.
So I got Oregon State over 8.5. I like that one, and then I also like Washington State under 6.5. I like those two. I have a lot of leans in there as well, but those are the two that I like the best. I'm excited, man. I'm excited. We got one more preview left. SEC next week. AK will be back. We'll be back on Wednesday, 7:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10:15 Eastern Standard Time to do that one. Make sure to go to our YouTube, subscribe, youtube.com/Taproom Sports Podcast, twitch.tv/Taproom Sports. Thank you for hanging out with us. This will be, if you missed part of the show, it'll be up on Apple Podcast, Spotify Podcast, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcast fix, it'll be up there. So make sure to download it, listen to it. All of our conference previews are there as well, so you can go back and listen to those. We are a couple weeks away, or if we're 2 weeks away from college football beginning, so we're right there.
We are getting there for sure.
Make sure to follow Ervin on the X or Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, at Swerve and Ervin TSP. Follow myself at Jordan Rules TSP. We will see y'all on Sunday for the weekly recap. Y'all have a very blessed weekend. We out. Peace.